The vast, glittering halls of the Galactic Council's headquarters were filled with the chatter of alien leaders from across the galaxy. The Council, a union of the most technologically advanced alien species, had called for a summit to discuss the expansion of their empire. This was not just another meeting, it was the beginning of a new phase of conquest, with their eyes set on the stars. At the center of the room sat the council members, each one representing a powerful empire. Their eyes gleamed with superiority, knowing they had mastered technologies far beyond anything Earth could imagine. Earth, after all, was still just a fledgling planet, primitive in its ways and insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy. The human species had been dismissed as weak and powerless, barely worth a passing thought. But today, something was different. Humans had been invited to the summit, not as equals, but as mere spectators. Their role was to sit in silence, watch, and perhaps learn something from the more advanced species. The council couldn't fathom that these primitive humans could ever have anything of value to offer. As the meeting continued, the high-ranking official of the Galactic Council, Zillaron, a towering alien with an air of arrogance, leaned forward with a sneer. He glanced toward the human representatives, including Jack Harper, who sat quietly among them. Zillaron's voice echoed through the hall, dripping with sarcasm. "Let them show us something, if they can," he said, his words cutting through the air like a blade. He chuckled, as did many of the others around the room. They had no reason to take the humans seriously. After all, what could they possibly offer? It was in this moment, as the laughter filled the room, that Jack Harper, seemingly just an ordinary human, stood up. His movements were calm, unhurried. But inside, Jack's heart raced. He knew this moment had come. The council had no idea what he was capable of. Jack wasn't just any human, he was one of the few rare psionics on Earth, born with extraordinary mental powers that even his own people didn't fully understand. The room fell silent as Jack took a single step forward. His presence was almost too quiet, too still, and that only made the tension in the room more palpable. The council members exchanged curious glances, their skepticism evident. Zillaron raised an eyebrow, intrigued but dismissive. "Do you wish to demonstrate your abilities, human?" Zillaron asked, his voice dripping with condescension. "Go ahead. Show us what you have." Jack's calm demeanor remained unchanged. He could feel the weight of their gaze upon him, their disbelief radiating across the room. But Jack was prepared. He had trained for years to control his powers, and now was the time to reveal them. With a slow, deliberate motion, Jack closed his eyes. The tension in the air thickened. The moment had arrived. The council waited, their arrogance making them confident that they were about to witness something utterly trivial. But what happened next would shatter their perception of humanity forever. A subtle hum filled the air as Jack's psionic powers began to stir. The objects in the room, once stationary, began to tremble. A chair, placed innocently beside him, hovered inches above the ground. It wasn't obvious at first, but then it started to spin slowly, its movements controlled by Jack's mind. The council members leaned forward in their seats, their curiosity piqued, but still uncertain. Surely this was some kind of trick. Some human technology they didn't understand, perhaps? But Jack wasn't using any technology. This was pure, raw power. He opened his eyes. The room's temperature seemed to drop as the objects around him began to shake. With a thought, Jack sent the chair soaring across the room, crashing into the far wall with a thunderous crash. The noise echoed, sending ripples through the silence that followed. The council members froze. Zillaron, who had been laughing moments before, was now staring in wide-eyed shock. His mouth hung open as he tried to comprehend what had just happened. A few gasped, others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was not a trick. This was something real. Something dangerous. Jack stood motionless, his face calm and composed. But inside, his mind raced. The room was in chaos now, and Jack knew that this was only the beginning. The humans had been underestimated, dismissed as weak, until now. The very foundation of the council's beliefs had just been shattered. They thought they were untouchable, but they had no idea what humanity was capable of. The silence stretched on, thick with tension. The council had no words, no explanations. Only stunned, wide-eyed disbelief. Jack could feel their growing fear, their unease. This was his moment. He hadn't just proven humanity's worth. He had made the council question everything they thought they knew. As the suspense hung in the air, Jack's mind raced, knowing that this was just the beginning of a much larger war. A war not just for survival, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. And the council would soon realize just how far humanity was willing to go to defend itself. The first spark of conflict had been lit. What would happen next? The council had no idea. Jack stood in the center of the room, his eyes closed in deep concentration. A soft hum seemed to fill the air, and the atmosphere began to shift. The lights above flickered once, then twice. A strange, heavy pressure seemed to build around them, thick and invisible. The alien leaders, who had been so sure of their superiority, now found themselves caught in an unsettling silence. Something was happening. Something they couldn't explain. At first, it was subtle. A chair nearby began to tremble, its legs scraping softly against the floor. But then, the room's temperature dropped sharply. The air grew thick, and the hum grew louder, vibrating through the walls and floors. The council members exchanged confused glances, but none of them moved, unsure of what was unfolding before them. Without warning, the pressure intensified. Jack's mind surged with psychic power. His face remained calm, his hands by his sides, but the sheer force of his will radiated outward. The room seemed to respond in kind, as if it were a living, breathing entity under his control. Suddenly, a chair closest to Jack lifted off the ground, floating several feet into the air. The alien leaders gasped, their eyes widening in disbelief. They had seen many forms of technology and power, but this was something else. No technology could account for what they were witnessing. Jack's psionic energy surged again, this time stronger. The chair spun violently in the air before Jack flung it across the room with terrifying speed. The chair slammed into the stone wall with such force that it cracked the surface, sending fragments of rock flying. The sound of the impact echoed through the hall, reverberating in every corner. The alien leaders froze in place, their eyes locked on the floating debris. Their expressions shifted from confusion to fear. Some were too stunned to speak, while others looked around, trying to make sense of what they had just seen. Was this a weapon? A new form of technology? Or was it something more? Eva Solis, Jack's teammate and a brilliant scientist, watched from the sidelines, her face pale. She had known about Jack's abilities, had witnessed them in training, but seeing it displayed like this, in front of so many powerful beings, was something else entirely. She could sense the growing panic in the room. The council wasn't just shocked, they were afraid. She glanced at Jack, her heart racing. She had spent years studying human potential, but this? This was far beyond what they had expected. The alien leaders had underestimated humanity's capabilities, thinking of them as nothing more than primitive beings. But now, they were witnessing the raw power of humanity's psionics, a power that had remained hidden from the rest of the galaxy. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of the chair's debris scattering across the floor. The tension in the room was thick, palpable. Then, as if to break the stillness, a voice spoke. "What is this?" The voice came from Zillaron, the same official who had once mocked the humans. He was no longer laughing, no longer dismissive. His voice was filled with awe, and perhaps a trace of fear. The council members looked at one another, their unease growing. This display of power had shattered everything they had believed about humanity. They had seen humans as weak, insignificant creatures, but now, they weren't so sure. Eva Solis' eyes widened as she realized the gravity of the situation. The reaction of the council could change everything for Earth. This sudden shift in the balance of power could lead to a dangerous path, one that could either bring humanity to the forefront of the galaxy or provoke the wrath of the council. Jack's face remained impassive, his body still, as the room continued to buzz with energy. He hadn't just shown them his power, he had made them question everything they knew. The Galactic Council had thought they were the most powerful force in the universe, but now, they had to confront the reality that humanity had the potential to rival them. The room was filled with a tense, uneasy silence. The alien leaders were no longer sure of what to do. Some whispered among themselves, exchanging words in their alien tongues, while others stared at Jack, their eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. But Jack knew one thing for certain: this was only the beginning. And the council would soon realize that humanity was far more powerful than they ever imagined. The room was filled with a heavy silence after Jack's display of psionic power. The Galactic Council, once unified in their superiority over the lesser species of the galaxy, now found themselves divided. The air was thick with tension as leaders whispered among themselves, uncertain of what to do next. Zillaron, the high-ranking official who had earlier mocked humanity, was the first to speak up. His voice was sharp, filled with urgency. "We cannot allow this to continue. The humans are no longer insignificant. They've shown us their power, and if we let them grow, they could disrupt the entire galaxy's balance. An immediate strike on Earth is necessary to eliminate this threat before it spreads." His words were clear, and the weight of his authority echoed in the room. Several council members nodded in agreement, their faces hardening with resolve. They had seen the strength humanity possessed, and they feared what would happen if that power went unchecked. Zillaron's suggestion to act fast resonated with those who feared losing their grip on the galaxy's order. The idea of wiping out Earth seemed like the only solution to prevent a future catastrophe. But not everyone was so quick to resort to violence. Thera, an older alien leader with a reputation for wisdom and patience, stood up, her voice calm but firm. "Zillaron, rushing into conflict may lead us to regret our decision. Humanity has shown us something unexpected, something unique. This is not a threat, it is an opportunity. We must understand their potential. If we approach them carefully, perhaps we can turn this into something beneficial, something that can help the galaxy." Her tone was gentle, yet filled with authority, and her eyes swept across the room, meeting each leader's gaze. For a moment, the room went quiet as her words lingered in the air. Some of the council members looked uncomfortable, torn between Zillaron's call for swift action and Thera's plea for diplomacy. The argument between war and peace was growing more intense, with each faction pushing their own agenda. The tension was palpable, and the once unified council was now on the brink of a split. The debate was heating up, and the council's inability to agree was causing chaos within the ranks. It was clear that the divide among them was deeper than just their views on humanity, it was about control, power, and fear. But neither side was prepared for what was about to happen next. Suddenly, the room went dark for a brief moment, and a loud hum filled the air. A deep, pulsing energy vibrated through the floor and walls. The alien leaders turned toward the giant holographic display, their eyes wide with alarm. A cloaked ship had appeared just above Earth, hidden from their view until now. The ship was enormous, designed for stealth, and it now decloaked with terrifying speed, its massive form looming over the planet. The ship was not just any ordinary vessel. It was an elite force, armed with highly advanced android soldiers capable of leveling entire cities. The androids were nearly indestructible, with weaponry designed to obliterate any resistance. The ship's sudden appearance sent shockwaves through the room, and every leader instinctively knew what this meant. "They're preparing to strike Earth," one of the council members whispered, his voice trembling with fear.
The ship was a last-minute decision by a faction of the council who had already decided that humanity was a threat that needed to be eliminated before it could rise up. The attack was already in motion, and the decision was final. Jack's demonstration of psionic power had tipped the scales. There was no turning back now. Back on Earth, Jack's actions had unleashed something far more dangerous than a single psionic display. The Council's internal strife had left them vulnerable to swift and decisive action from those who saw humanity's power as a threat, and now, war had officially begun. The fate of Earth rested on the ability to fight back against forces much more powerful than they could have ever imagined. As the massive alien ship prepared to launch its deadly assault, Jack stood still, unaware of the danger approaching. His mind, still buzzing with the power of his psionics, had no idea that his display of strength had just become the catalyst for an intergalactic conflict that could change everything. The Council's division was clear, and now, the galaxy's future was uncertain. Would they annihilate humanity, or could they forge an unlikely alliance? One thing was certain, the first move had been made, and the stage for war was set. The countdown to destruction had begun. As the colossal alien ship prepared to unleash its army of androids upon Earth, humanity's hope rested on the shoulders of a few brave souls. The world cities, once peaceful, were now fortresses ready to defend their homes against the looming threat. But they were facing a force far superior in terms of technology, and the odds seemed impossible. Action-packed combat scene. As the sky darkened with the approach of the alien fleet, Jack, Eva, and a squad of the most skilled human soldiers were already in motion. They were positioned at the front lines, ready for a battle that would determine the fate of Earth. The soldiers were armed with advanced human technology, laser rifles, plasma grenades, and energy shields, but it was their psionic abilities, combined with their fighting spirit, that made them stand out. The battle erupted with an explosive bang as the alien androids landed on Earth's surface, their metallic bodies gleaming under the harsh lights of the war-torn cities. These robots were built for destruction, armed with powerful energy cannons and equipped with advanced combat tactics driven by artificial intelligence. They immediately began their assault, firing massive blasts that decimated the landscape. But humanity was not about to roll over and accept defeat. Jack, standing alongside Eva and the soldiers, closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the familiar surge of psychic power course through his veins. With a mental push, he reached out and latched onto the nearest enemy ship hovering above them. His psionics took hold, and in a flash, he was controlling the ship's weapons. Cinematic visuals. Above, human spaceships, flying in tight formation, launched a barrage of orbital bombardments. The sky lit up with brilliant energy blasts, raining down on the alien fleet like meteors. The androids on the ground were taken off guard, as some of their own ships turned against them. Jack's telekinetic control of their weapons unleashed massive explosions, wiping out enemy forces from the sky in seconds. The air was thick with smoke and debris, and the battlefield was a blur of flashing lights and falling rubble. On the ground, the battle raged. Soldiers, equipped with high-tech armor and weapons, clashed with the androids in close-quarters combat. Their movements were precise and coordinated, a testament to their training. Jack's psionic powers allowed him to push and pull objects with his mind, using them as weapons against the androids. One moment, he sent a massive concrete slab flying into a group of enemies, knocking them off their feet. The next, he halted a missile mid-air and sent it crashing back into the android ranks with a wave of his hand. Underdog victory. Despite being outnumbered and facing a technologically superior force, the humans fought with everything they had. The androids, while powerful, lacked the creativity and determination of the human spirit. It was Jack's tactical use of his psionic abilities that tipped the scale. He didn't just fight back, he adapted, using his mind to manipulate the battlefield. Eva, standing beside Jack, was a brilliant scientist, and she was no stranger to technology. While Jack controlled the android ships, she was hacking into their AI systems from a mobile command center set up nearby. Her fingers danced over the keyboard as she infiltrated the alien networks, sending waves of corrupted data that caused the androids to malfunction. Some of the robots froze in place, while others turned on their own allies, causing chaos among their ranks. The humans were now gaining the upper hand. The tide of the battle began to shift. One by one, the androids fell. Their advanced weaponry and combat tactics weren't enough to overcome the power of human resilience and ingenuity. Even when the odds seemed insurmountable, the humans didn't back down. They fought fiercely, not just for survival, but for their world. As the final androids were defeated and the alien fleet began to retreat, a cheer went up from the soldiers. They had done the impossible, they had held their ground and fought back against a superior enemy. Jack and Eva, bloodied but unbowed, stood victorious. The battle for Earth was far from over, but this first victory was a monumental moment in the fight for humanity's survival. The humans had proven that, despite their technological inferiority, they possessed something far more powerful: willpower, ingenuity, and the strength to fight against the odds. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. The battle for Earth was over, but the fight for humanity's future had just begun. The alien forces had been pushed back, and for the first time in centuries, humans had stood their ground against the mighty Galactic Council. But as the dust settled and the victory cheers rang out, one thought lingered in the air: what would happen next? Ending hook. As Earth's cities slowly began to rebuild, the Galactic Council, shaken and disoriented, issued a final message. It was a warning, a promise, a challenge. The voice echoed across the stars, and its cold, distant tone sent shivers through every human listening. "This is only the beginning," the message declared. The Galactic Council was not giving up. They had underestimated humanity once, but they weren't about to make the same mistake again. Their power, though shaken, still loomed large over the galaxy. Yet, the humans had proven something that day: they were no longer the insignificant species the Council once thought them to be. Jack Harper, the quiet psionic warrior who had sparked this unprecedented turn of events, stood in front of the ruined Council Tower. Behind him, the towering spires of alien architecture lay shattered, a testament to humanity's resolve. His face was bloodied, but there was no sign of fear in his eyes. With a calm and determined expression, Jack turned to face the camera. "We're just getting started," he said, his voice filled with quiet confidence. The words echoed in the minds of every human who had fought that day, every soldier who had stood by their side. They weren't just survivors anymore, they were warriors. And now, they had something the aliens did not: unity, strength, and an unshakable belief in their potential. Ending visual. The camera panned out, showing Earth from space. The once quiet and isolated planet was now a beacon of hope, its starships cutting through the darkness of the cosmos. Earth's fleets, once small and vulnerable, now formed a united front. Powerful, organized, and ready for whatever challenges the galaxy would throw at them. The fleet's massive ships gleamed in the cold light of distant stars, their engines humming with the promise of a new beginning. In the distance, Earth's newly constructed space stations loomed, symbols of their rise to galactic prominence. The sight of these colossal structures, built by human hands, was a testament to how far Earth had come. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. Humanity, once a fledgling species, had entered a new age. The Council's message was a threat, yes, but it was also an invitation. A new galactic order was on the horizon, and humanity had just taken its first steps into the vast, uncharted expanse of space. But this time, they would no longer be passive observers, they were ready to lead. As the camera zoomed out further, showing Earth and its burgeoning fleets in all their glory, the screen slowly faded to black. A sense of anticipation hung in the air: what would the future hold for humanity? What challenges would they face in this new era? The questions were unanswered, but one thing was certain: humanity had proven they were more than capable of standing tall, and the universe would soon learn that Earth was not to be underestimated. The story ended with a powerful sense of hope, a message of strength and determination that left the audience on the edge of their seats, eager to see what came next. The galaxy was vast, and there were many dangers ahead, but for the first time, humanity wasn't looking up at the stars in wonder, they were looking at them with ambition, ready to claim their place among the stars.